It's Vixie. I hope you're having a great day and hope it only gets better. Welcome to something a little bit different. I thought it might be kind of fun for me to go through the wonderful soundtrack of The Binding of Isaac, Rebirth, Repentance, Afterbirth, etc., and sort of give my ranking of each individual track. And of course, purely for time and just in case any weird copyright stuff happens to crop up, I should be able to use the Isaac soundtrack just fine in videos, but you never know with YouTube. Auto-detect thing can get kind of silly sometimes, so we're just going to be safe, and I'm only going to have a snippet of the song in the actual video that goes up publicly on the main channel. And if you want to hear the full things, you can always subscribe to my Patreon for the full uncut version, which, just for the sake of what this video is, I'll go ahead and do the Patreon plug right now just to get it out of the way so we can get right to the awesome music of The Binding of Isaac Repentance. A huge shout out to all of my lovely patrons. I love you all very much. If you would like to support me and the channel, you can do so on Patreon for just $5 a month and you'll get a bunch of cool perks, such as work in progress art, whether it be for thumbnails or just something I have you working on, full resolution art, including for thumbnails, early access to my videos, and a special channel where I host all of my director's cut and uncut content for your viewing pleasure. And in this case, you'll also be able to listen to the full tracks of these songs from Isaac along with me. So if any of that strikes your fancy, make sure to head down to the link in the description and check out my Patreon. Once again, a huge shout out to all of my current patrons. Your support is very much appreciated and I love you all very much. And now let's move on to the video. So, The Binding of Isaac Repentance specifically, well, not specifically, but including Repentance and Afterbirth, has a lot of tracks. So if I were to include the full things, ignoring the potential for copyright being silly, this video is going to be super long. It's probably going to be super long regardless, but I'll do my best to just kind of give you a good taste of what the song is like if you've never played The Binding of Isaac or you haven't gotten to this part of The Binding of Isaac yet, and then I'll give a short sentence or two of my thoughts on the song, what I like about it, what I dislike about it, and then we'll move on to the next song very swiftly. Additionally, I'm actually doing something like special and different in the behind the scenes, I guess you would say, for this. This is a very special thing that all the people subscribed to my Patreon will get to experience in real time. I'm actually going to record two things today. So right now, of course, you're seeing the Binding of Isaac music review thing. At some point, I am also going to be recording an episode of Let's Draw, which will eventually, come up on the main channel as well. But of course, if you're subscribed to my Patreon, not only will you get access to the immediate raw footage, you will also get access to the video early whenever they both go live instead of having to wait, 2 separate weeks for each video to go live. And of course, before we get to the actual nitty-gritty of this here video, we have to cover the comment of the week. I picked out this comment from Tyler Warrior 2160, where they say, "Love you, Vixie, keep doing what you do. My week is not complete if I don't see a Vix vid." This is just a very simple, very nice comment that made me happy, so I wanted to highlight it. If you would like to be the next comment of the week, leave a comment down below, and I don't have a theme for this week, so it can be anything you want. It can be silly, it can be stupid, it can be completely nonsensical, and who knows, you might be the next comment of the week. So with all that disclaimer out the way, let's actually get into the first track, Genesis 2210, the title menu music for The Binding of Isaac. Genuinely so good. So just to cut down a little bit more on this video's runtime, I am going to review all of the Genesis 2010 whatever versions for the different updates, because Rebirth, Afterbirth, I believe, and Repentance all have an updated version of the main title theme, and they're all very similar, so I'm just gonna rate them all as one. And I will say, it is very good. I think my brother put it best when just before I actually was, he bought me Repentance. That main chord progression, that main vocalization of la 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 la, that is so iconic. It works perfectly for a main title theme. This is the Binding of Isaac theme song. This is what I think of when I think Isaac. And purely for that, I'm going to give it, we'll say, An A+. I decided to go more of a tier list style rating to this. We're not doing an actual tier list, but we're going from F, which I don't think there's going to be a single F on here, going from F to S, which I might throw in an S+ tier for the tracks that I just absolutely adore, but we'll see what we do with going forward. But Genesis 2210, the main title theme and the theme song for The Binding of Isaac, is an A. And now we're going to move on to the next track, the basement theme, Diptera Sonata. So, Diptera Sonata, I believe, is a great example of a song that you think you hear so much that you have to be sick of it, but when you listen to it isolated from the gameplay, you still recognize how fucking awesome it is. Like, just to rattle off a few things that I love about the basement theme, the drums throughout the entire song are fucking addictive. I love that very slow, like, metronome-style beat, and then around the, like, I think it was like the 2-minute 50-second mark where the guitar solo just goes fucking apeshit. This kicks ass. It's so good. I want to give S, but I know there are tracks that are better than this in here. So just to give those better tracks a little bit more breathing room, I think this is going to sit at a firm A. So Genesis 2210 was A+, and this is an A. Both extremely good. Just to prepare yourself, I sort of alluded to this earlier when I said there's probably not going to be an F. The most of these are probably going to rank pretty high because the Binding of Isaac soundtrack is absolutely amazing. But with that, we now move on to Crusade, the basic boss fight theme. So Crusade is very special. It somehow manages to be a very obvious, oh, this is the first boss theme. When you get to the first boss, this is the song you hear. You're fighting Monstro, you're fighting God forbid, Ragman. It manages to be that typical, yeah, this is the first boss music, so it's not overly intense, but also still manages to be incredibly tense at certain parts, which the funny thing about this song is because it is the most basic boss theme for the most basic bosses in the game, you don't usually hear all that much of it. You'll usually hear around, on a bad run, like 30 seconds of it, which is a shame because all of it is really good. And there's parts of the song that you probably didn't even know were a thing because it is a 4-minute song that you only ever hear a small portion of because you always just blitz the boss. God forbid, in an actual run, you hear the majority of the song, you might want to just hold R at that point. It's simple, it's effective. I wouldn't say it stands out overly well, but it is a bit disappointing in an entire soundtrack consisting of amazing songs. So I feel like it's very comfortable at C. Next up, we have Sodden Hollow, the Caves theme. It's interesting. I'm not sure if I like it or not. On one hand, this really gets close to that feeling of I've heard it a million times, I'm kind of sick of it, and it doesn't have the same staying power as the basement theme does, but at the same time, there are just a few little things about it that I absolutely love. And it is still like enough of a normal song that you could listen to it just on your own time if you felt like it. On top of, just the very slow, drawn-out drums, there's also the constant, dripping and, ambient cave noises that match up and work as the sort of metronome for the song. I really like that. Halfway through, when that super, super low, gravelly guitar comes in, I don't know what it is about that, but it is just so dark and nasty, and I love it. It's definitely on the lower end of, okay, yeah, I think I've listened to this a little bit too much just by playing. So I would say this is a lower C. Still good, but like, I'm not going to be coming back to it too often. Next up, we have The Forgotten, the Secret Room theme. It evokes you going into like the attic of your parents' old house and finding an old like photo book or something and opening it up and discovering something horrific you never knew about your own parents, which is entirely fitting for the entire theming of The Binding of Isaac. So this is like, this is perfect for what it needs to be. You kind of get desensitized to it after playing Isaac for so long, but think about it from a realistic perspective of you actually doing this. You bust open a wall, it crumbles to the ground, you step through, and you walk into this completely empty room, aside from some mushrooms growing around, spider webs everywhere, and there's a corpse sitting in the center. That is freaky as fuck. It is incredibly fitting that this song is so fucking freaky when you listen to it on its own. Obviously, your ears are immediately drawn to the very basic piano chord progression, because that's like its main front and center. But if you listen to it on its own, really like turn up your headphones, you have good headphones, you can hear the background that's going on, it is fucked up. It is so freaky. It's so good. I love it. I'm gonna give this an A. Next up, we have the Abyss theme. The depth theme, Abyss. There we go. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I think the depth theme is probably the weakest of the entire soundtrack. We are really getting into the experimental stuff, which I don't hate it, but it's very hard for me to enjoy. I appreciate experimental stuff. I appreciate stuff that's different, tries things different, but it's very hard for me to find like an experimental track that I really vibe with. Obviously, I'm not gonna bang my head to this sort of music. That's really not the point. But Abyss specifically, I feel like it's just kind of boring. It's just kind of a lot of the same sound effects over and over again with that same like droning like bass. And I feel like that vocalization, it's like plays just a little bit too often. If it was more spaced out, it'd probably be a little bit more to my taste. But as far as positive things to go about this, something I did notice that I didn't really notice before is throughout every so often, or funnily enough, around the pace I would expect that vocalization to show up, there's this sound effect that's very like whippy and like light, and it sounds like someone desperately trying to strike a match, which I think is really fitting because, you know, this is the depths. It's really fucking dark. If you're in a dank-ass cave, you don't know where the fuck you are. If you find a box of matches, you're gonna desperately try and get that match to light. Overall, though, this is probably going to be the lowest I rate a song in the entire soundtrack, and I'm gonna say it's... I don't want to put it at a D, but my heart is saying it's a D. Next up, we have Matricide, the mom boss fight theme. Okay, so first off, I will say this is so much better than I thought it was. Okay, but before we get into the actual like comments about this song, I just want to say this song made me realize two things. One, I apparently have a weakness for really low-tuned, dirty guitar. I really like that. And two, the drums and the more fast-paced tracks in this entire soundtrack are just so consistently addictive. I love listening to the drums specifically. Now, as for what I feel about this song in particular, I feel like it is one of a few songs that suffer from the specific point they start in game to lend credence better to a loop. Because obviously the music just never ends. If you just stand in a corner with like Nod Leaf or something, the music's never gonna end. It's just on loop. And because of that, they had to kind of sacrifice a good portion of build-up and other integral things to a full track. So when you listen to it on its own, you get the full experience. It's a lot better. So in game, the mom fight song, I would say, is probably low B, high C, but on its own, as its own track, I actually really like it. I think it's like high B. We're gonna give this a B+. It's good. I really like it. Next up, we have The Calm, which I believe is the post-boss fight theme. Genuine goosebumps. Love it so much. The Calm is definitely the track where I am like, I just get the sense that this is the most underrated track in the entire soundtrack, because you don't really ever like listen to it at all, like ever, because it's primarily the post-boss fight theme. So you finish the boss, you grab your item, maybe you pop into your devil deal or whatever, grab that item and then leave. You hear it for maybe a couple seconds, which is a damn shame because it's really, really good. Probably gonna hear this a lot, but it's haunting. It is spooky. And I love it. I love it so much. Especially with the fact that it's primarily just piano with the guitar that is very much in the background. You can barely hear it. It's very wispy and ethereal. I'm pretty sure it was a song on either Nevermind or In Utero. It's very Nirvana-esque, that like distant wispy guitar. I don't know how to explain it, but I do like it. I think it's really cool, but I would love to learn this on piano at some point. I'm gonna give this an S. It's so good. And with that, we move on to Viscera, the womb theme. This one's gonna be weird. Is it weird that I really like it? Like, is it just a little bit weird of me to say that this is actually a track I would listen to on its own? If none of you believe me when I said I do like experimental stuff, it's just hard for me to like it. This is experimental stuff that I like. First off, before I get into anything else, there's a really cool detail that I did not notice every time I've heard this in-game. There is a very specific bass line or sound effect or droning, whatever, occasionally plays, which it might be playing throughout and it just brings up in volume every so often, but there's this droning sound effect that starts in the right ear, very steadily, smoothly moves to the left ear, and then right back starts once again on the right ear. And that is basically the exact like visual of a classic typical heart monitor. Which is really cool because this is the womb theme. So it's like, that's the heart monitor that mom is hooked up to because she's in the hospital. That detail I've never noticed before, and it made it so much cooler. And then, of course, the like fight variation, all they do is add drums. And I mentioned before that I'm fucking addicted to the drums in this game. So of course, it's great. I was not expecting this, but I'm actually gonna rate the womb theme an A. It's really good. Oh, and I totally forgot to mention, since it's thematic, I totally forgot to mention, in the mom fight theme, there is a point, I believe it's like 2/3 of the way through, where there's this big, like, screeching noise, and it sounds like radio static or like television interference. But I was so, caught up on moving on to the next song and trying to get this to move along. But I did want to point out that big, loud, screeching noise out of nowhere is really thematically cool, especially now that we have Repentance and the Dogma boss fight. Because that was just the Rebirth version. This never had, like, a different special version. So that, like, TV static thing was in there from the get-go, and now it's even more thematically cool because it's not just tied to the fact that, Isaac's mom used to listen to, like, Christian broadcasts on the TV and everything, but it's also heralding the eventuality of you fighting Dogma and finishing the game, which I think is really cool. But enough yapping about a song that was 2 songs ago. We need to move on to the womb fight theme, Ventricide. Okay, so this one, I actually have a couple cool things to say about this. One, of course, on top of the addictive drums that are in a lot of these tracks, there's also the very bassy bass drum throughout that's very steady, always the same, basically never changes pace throughout the entirety of it. That is obviously supposed to emulate a heartbeat, because this is obviously the It Lives or Mom's Heart fight theme. But there is something relating to that I did notice that initially made me think, wow, this is a lot more generic than I thought it was, because there are parts of the song very low-key and a lot less chaotic than you would think for this being, at a certain point, the end fight theme very early on. I did notice because it lives in Mom's heart are hearts. Well, and a fetus heart thing, but that's beside the point. They are providing the pace and the beat in those quiet parts when you are fighting it. I was like, I made that connection in my head, like, why does it sound so empty? Because I'm not playing the game right now, I'm just listening to the music. And I don't have the added pace, the added beat of the heart adding to the song, so those parts seem a lot less driven, I guess, which is super cool. It detracts from the listening experience just on its own because you don't have that, but I appreciate that that thought went in to have it maintain its pace through an actual sound effect that just plays throughout the boss fight even if you have the music muted. Purely because it is missing something if you're not listening to the in-game version with the sound effects from the boss fight, I'm gonna say on its own, it's gonna be a low B. Good, but it's missing something. Next up we have Acceptance, the You Died music. Very simple, very effective. I don't have much to say about it because, again, this is basically just another song you'll hear for maybe even like as short as 1 second if you just die immediately and want to go into another run, up to like, I want to say like 20 seconds if you are just completely dumbfounded that you lost that run, which has happened to me a couple times. It is largely just a very simple death screen music, but I will say I did notice something kind of funny where the drums in this are obviously, they're not going to be the fast-paced addictive drums that they are in most of the tracks because it's the death theme, but I find it kind of funny that it's like that marching band style like snare drum thing. I don't know what those are specifically called. It almost gives it a sort of like military like funerary service feel to it, which I find is kind of funny, but in general it's simple, does what it needs to, doesn't really stand out aside from that. I'm gonna say this is a firm C. It's okay. Next up we have Anima Vendit, the Deal with the Devil theme. Okay, so this one is another case of you're probably not going to hear too much of it because A, you're so disappointed in your devil deal that you just immediately turn around and left without thinking. Like you got Ghost Baby in a red chest and that's literally it. Or you scream so loudly at seeing Brimstone pop up on your screen that you just immediately grab it and leave and not even entertain the idea of staying in there any longer than you need to. So I'm actually interested to see, I wonder if the drums actually ever come in game or if it's just the loop of like the droning sound effects. I didn't even know that was part of the song. In general though, it's very low key, it's spooky, sort of what you would expect from like Stanley popping up and saying, hey, I got you some cool stuff. Give me your life essence and you can have it. In general though, I don't think this is the one I'm going to come back to. It's cool. I don't really have much else to say about it though. I'm going to say this is probably mid to low C. So we'll say like a C minus. It's okay. Next up, keeping in the whole Stanley thing, we have the Shoal theme, Duress. Yeah, okay, you know what? I'm just gonna stop it right there. You know how I said I think it was the Abyss theme is probably gonna be the weakest? I'm not really feeling Shoal like at all. I had a feeling I was gonna have this sort of reaction to it because obviously I've heard it in game multiple times. It's not the first time I'm listening to this. Even the first time I heard it where it was completely fresh and I was able to get a completely fresh perspective to it, I just wasn't really feeling it. I don't really like the Shoal theme. It is incredibly repetitive. It's not really doing anything that's like jumping out at me. And this is the first song in the songs we've done so far that I've really just considered and ended up actually skipping through to see if it changes at any point. And not really. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe there's something here I'm not picking up on. Maybe it's conceptually cool. I'm not feeling it. I'm not feeling it. I want to give this like a D minus. I really don't like it. Not only does it not really jump out at me, it's so repetitive, it kind of gets on my nerves. Which for a roguelike, you cannot have music that is repetitive and gets on your nerves, because you're going to be hearing that music a lot. It needs to be timeless. So yeah, Duress, the Shoal theme, is D-. It's not horrible, so it's not going to get an F. I don't think there's a song on here that's going to get an F, but Shoal is going to be the closest we probably get. Now, moving on to a hopefully lighter note, we are going on to Hericide, the Satan boss theme. Definitely better than Shoal. I would say part of your reward for getting through Shoal is being able to listen to this. I wouldn't say it's one of the best tracks on the soundtrack, but it is good. I would not be opposed to listening to this again. That being said, it wouldn't be my first choice. It's good, a little bit generic for the majority of it, but there's enough thrown in there in like the background with like the chanting and stuff that I do find pretty cool. In general, I would say this is a comfortable B. Maybe a B-, but we'll be friendly here and say a comfortable B. Next up, we have Murmur of the Harvestmen, which is apparently what the store theme is called. It is decent. I would say it's good. However, the in-game version, I feel like starts at the wrong time. Because for the majority of what I have heard of this song and what most people hear is just that first initial part, where it's just kind of that same like droning sound effect with the like plinky like chime sound effects that occasionally showing up. But mostly it's just the back and forth, which is a very repetitive loop. It's not a hard to listen to like chord progression, but it's very short and gets old very quickly. So I feel like if the in-game version started when the like actual additional instruments come in, I feel like it would be a lot better. On its own, I would say it's okay. So I think this is gonna be maybe a C+. It's okay. Next up, we have Empty Vessels, the Angel Room theme. I was expecting to like this. I have a weakness for angels after all. This is a very nice reward on top of, whatever item you end up getting for you to, actually getting through without taking any red heart damage and, saying no to the objectively, offensively better devil rooms. It's a good reward. I do really like it. It's simple. It's nice to listen to. It makes me happy. It's good. I like it. We're gonna give this a B+. Next up, we are moving on to Everlasting Hymn, the Cathedral theme. So this is good. It is good. I like it. It is nice. It is cool. Once again, it doesn't really jump out at me with anything super, super cool, but I do like it. I will say it has been a long time since I've brushed up on my Latin. Several years. I was still in high school when I was trying to learn Latin, at least in some regard. So it would be cool if I actually knew what they were saying, assuming they actually are speaking actual Latin and not just doing the thing that Amino did where they just kind of threw stuff together that sounded Latin. Either way, it sounds cool. I do like it. It does what it needs to. Unoffensive. I would say, we're gonna give this a B-. B-. And now let's just everybody crank the fuck up for this one. Turn up your fucking volume, because we have Infanticide, the Isaac fight theme. This one they fucking cooked on. It's so good. Just spoiler alert, it's amazing. so fucking good. Oh my god. I feel entirely confident saying that this is the best song in the entire fucking soundtrack. It's so good. This isn't even the theme for an end boss, like a proper end boss, like the Beast or Mega Stanley or fucking Delirium. It's not an end boss. It's not, if you have everything unlocked, it's just a boss on the way to what could be the end of your run, unless you get Delirium and, you know, fucking not Dark Room the chest. But like, my god, it is so good. You know how I mentioned that the drums are always addictive in like the more fast-paced stuff? The entirety of this song is addictive. From the very basic steady beat, to the guitars just going ape shit, to the choir, to the fucking the string solo with like the fucking violins or cellos, whatever the fuck they are. Awesome, amazing. This song is awesome, so fucking good. I knew this going in. If you paid attention to, like, if you've been around for my streams, if we fought Isaac, which I can't remember if we can, or just at any point where I'm fighting Isaac in a video when I'm playing, I go basically completely dead silent when I fight Isaac because I'm listening to the music. So with that in mind, you could probably expect this song is double S+. It is so fucking good. Inject it directly into my eyeballs. I need more of this. All right, moving on. Next, we have Ambush, which I'm not sure just from the name what this is, and it doesn't say in parentheses what it is. So we're gonna find out. This is the mini-boss theme for like when you bump into one of the 7 deadly sins. So that makes sense now. How do I feel about it though? I would say it's alright. There are parts of it that I do really like around, I think it's like the 50-second mark where that just the really low, the low tune guitar solo. Awesome, love that. However, I feel like it goes on just a little bit too long with what it is. If the track itself was shorter, with the fact that, again, this is a looping boss theme, if it was just, the track itself was a little bit shorter, it would probably be better, but I feel like it just goes on just a little bit too long for me to really enjoy it. I feel like it overstays its welcome. In general, though, I would say it's alright. I don't have too many problems with it. I'm probably not going to come back and listen to it. So we're going to say this is like a C+. Next up, we have Tome of Knowledge, the library theme. Okay, I was not expecting to like this one so much, but on like a listen on its own, I really, really like this. So there's a couple things I want to note here. I really like the different approach to a library theme it's taking. Because typically library, you'll expect like strings to be front and center for maybe like a harpsichord even. Because it's supposed to be like, oh, it's a library. It's a place of knowledge of the higher class. Those who go there to seek knowledge, whatever the fuck. You're not playing, you know, a scholar of any sort. You're playing a 5-year-old. You're playing a baby. So with that in mind, Isaac's like biggest exposure to books is probably his parents reading him stories to help him go to bed. I mean, the end, like the final like cutscene is literally his dad and him, I guess, like writing a story, and also his dad using that as like a way to like lull him to sleep. That was the whole point of that end of cutscene. So I like that the approach here for the library theme is to have it sound like a lullaby with a music box. That's really cool. But of course, you know, you still have that, I believe it's a cello, it just hanging out in the right ear. Really, really low, really steady, really slow. I really, really like this. And also, this is a fact I never really talk about, but I also have a really like fascination and enjoyment of music boxes. A lot of people think music boxes are like really creepy and spooky or whatever. I love the way they sound. I love it so much. At some point, I would love to just start collecting music boxes. I think it'd be super fun. So I really like that music box sound is front and center here. I really appreciate that. I'm gonna give this an A+. I love it. Next up, we have Periculum, the cellar theme. ass level theme wasted on the second worst level in the entire game. So it's actually really funny, the stark contrast between my opinion on the Cellar music and the Cellar the level. The Cellar music is like maybe my second, maybe third favorite track in the entire soundtrack. It is so fucking awesome. But the Cellar in-game, the actual level format, I fucking despise it so much. The Cellar is filled with enemies, bosses included, that are just so goddamn annoying. They wouldn't be and aren't that bad when you actually have items, but this is a level 1 alt. This replaces the basement. Not alt path, it's just if you load in, there's a 50-50 shot whether you're going to the basement, or I guess it's 33%, whether you're going to the basement, the burning basement, or the cellar. Every time I get the cellar, I am so fucking tempted to just hold R until I don't have to play the cellar. There's too many goddamn spiders, there's too many goddamn trites, there's too many goddamn roundworms. Every enemy that is special to the cellar and shows up more often in the cellar is fucking terrible. I hate it. But the music is badass. Genuinely the only reason to play the cellar is to listen to the music. You could replace the music for Shoal with the cellar music and I wouldn't even bat an eye. It would fit perfectly in with Shoal. It is fucking evil, which is entirely perfect because the cellar is basically hell when you have to play through it anyway. The only time the cellar is not painful is when you get an R key late into your first one and you restart and you happen to show up into the cellar with actual items. The only time the cellar is tolerable. That being said, the music fucking rips. So the music itself, ignoring the horrificness that is the cellar, the level, is gonna get an A+. It's awesome. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna give it an S. So good. Next up, we have Capiticus Calvaria, the Catacombs theme. Yeah, I think this is gonna be another skip. Okay, so funnily enough, I feel like this is the sort of track I would expect the Cellar to have purely based on the gameplay experience, because this kind of sucks. It's not great. I don't like it. It has a very similar problem with Shoal, where it's incredibly repetitive. It doesn't do much different. Once you hear the and then like the spider noises once or twice, you're already kind of over it, and then it just does that for the entire rest of the 4-minute runtime. Yeah, funnily enough, I feel like it would be fitting if you put this as the level track for the Cellar, Shoal as the level track for Catacombs, and the Cellar as the level track for Shoal. I feel like all of these their tracks got mixed up somehow. So Capiticus Calvaria, it should be the Cellar theme because they both suck. Periculum should be the Shoal theme because it's fucking evil and also awesome. And then the Shoal theme should be the Cellar theme because that place is hell. Oh wait, no, it should be the Catacombs theme. Sorry, I got that backwards. There's a lot of flip-flopping there. But the point I'm trying to say is Capiticus Calvaria kinda sucks, and yeah, I'm now fully understanding why if I happen to get the Catacombs leading into the depths, I've basically tuned out and I'm not listening anymore, because even go as far to say it is a bad theme into a very mediocre theme, and if I decide to go Shoal for whatever reason, it's just bad to mediocre to repetitive and boring. So yeah, I think we found our stinkers here. I actually really hate this one now that I'm reflecting on it. I really dislike it, actually. Do we give the Catacombs the first F? Yeah, I think we do. I don't like it. I'm not a fan. Sorry to any Catacombs defenders. Sorry to any Capiticus Calvaria enjoyers out there. It sucks. Didn't think that would happen, but go figure, I forgot the Catacombs existed. What bosses even show up in the Catacombs? I can't even think, like, Bumbino? Is that one? I don't fucking know. I feel like I see him show up in, like, the flooded caves more often. I have no idea what bosses even show up in the Catacombs. I can't even, off the top of my head, picture what the Catacombs look like. I think they're just the caves, but darker. I don't fucking know. It's a forgettable track for a forgettable level. Next up, we have When Blood Dries, the Necropolis theme. In the back of my mind, I'm thinking this might be another one I'm not a fan of, but I could be surprised. We'll find out. Yeah, I remember having a negative opinion of this. Once again, this is just another track that is just way too repetitive. The fight variation is better. The strings hanging out in the right ear, just doing that same back and forth throughout the entire 4-minute runtime. It does it way too often. It's way too repetitive. This one really feels like it was purely made to loop and not in a believable way. When I'm listening to the track on its own and I get to the end where the other instruments cut out and it's just like the I think they're like violins. They play out the track. I don't believe that. That doesn't feel like a natural conclusion to the song. It just feels like, okay, we've been looping for like 4 minutes. We have to end the track at some point. It's not great. I think it's better than Catacombs because it has something to it, but it's not good. So I think this is going to be like a D, maybe even a D minus. It's not great. I don't like it. Up next, we have Sketches of Pain, the chest theme. Okay, yeah, now we're coming back to something much better. It's good. I like it. I wouldn't say it fully feels like a very final confrontation thing, because granted, you're not even at the final confrontation yet. A, this isn't the Blue Baby fight. You still got to get there. B, that might not even be the end, because you might get delirium. So it makes sense. It feels very penultimate, which is perfect for it, because it kind of is penultimate. It is the second to last thing. Either you go fight Blue Baby and the game ends, or you go fight Blue Baby, get delirium, or you go fight Blue Baby and fight Mega Staniel. So either one, it works. It's fine. It's perfectly fine. I have no problems with it. I would say this is probably a comfortable C+. Very middle of the road, but just a little bit better. I like it. This next one, however, I'm just going to spoil it a little bit. I'm probably not going to have very much good things to say about it. We have Ascension, the chest fight theme, the Blue Baby boss fight theme. Okay, it's better than I thought it would be, but I'm still not crazy about it. The beat is there, the riff is there, the vocals seem weirdly, what's I'm looking for? Anticlimactic, I guess would be the word for it. It doesn't really feel to me like a proper boss fight theme, which is weird and especially damning after, considering this is the chest. This is the level after the cathedral, assuming you're not going to Megastan. This is the boss fight theme you hear after Infanticide. And to come after Infanticide, you better bring something truly special to the table, or you're just gonna seem like even worse by comparison. And unfortunately, I think that is what this suffers from. It's generally okay, it's fine, it's unoffensive, but the fact that it comes directly basically after Infanticide, one of the best tracks in the entire soundtrack, in my opinion, yeah, it just kind of brings it down a little bit. I'll be fair though, and I will say that this is a firm C. It's okay. I don't hate it. It's just, I knew going in, it's not gonna hit as hard as a lot of the other boss fight themes in here. In fact, I think that the basic boss fight theme is better, which is a shame considering that this could be the boss fight that ends your run. It's just kind of disappointing. Next up on the alternate path, not alt path, but the alternate path to the chest, so Dark Room, we have Devoid. It's good. I like it. I feel like it really sells the dark, ominous, evil tone that Shoal really could have benefited from way better, which is good because, this is the place it comes after Shoal. so it's gonna improve on it. In general though, this, at least for me, isn't really the kind of track I would come back to and listen to, but I do recognize that it's good, it's nice, it does what it needs to, and it doesn't really do much more than that. So I will say this is probably, I'm gonna give it a C+. It's alright. It's good. It's decent even. Next up, we have the Dark Room boss fight, the Lamb, the Fallen Angel, which I can't off the top of my head remember how this track goes, but at the same time, I don't fight the Lamb all that often. So it might just be from a lack of experience rather than, you know, just it not being notable. We'll find out. Okay, so I would say the song itself is not stellar, it doesn't jump out at me, but the thematics to it are super, super cool. I noticed it basically immediately off the bat, there is a lot of parallels in this song to Infanticide. There are very specific, like, particular motifs to the music that I find are very, very, very similar to Infanticide, just a little bit twisted or shifted some way, and I even noticed some parallels to the Blue Baby fight theme as well, Ascension. And I think that's very thematically cool because, you know, Isaac, obviously, Blue Baby, and the Lamb are all supposed to be Isaac. So it makes sense that all of their themes have something in common, which if I went back and I listened to Ascension again, I'll probably find something that parallels Infanticide as well, but on the initial listen, I didn't hear shit. It just kind of felt different. But I appreciate that at least with the Fallen Angel, the Darkroom fight, it is much more, well, I wouldn't say much more noticeable, but it is definitely noticeable if you're looking for it. That there are parallels to Infanticide, and there's a couple parallels to the other fight theme if you choose to go to Chest instead of Darkroom, and I think that's really cool. And now that I think about it, it's kind of cool thinking about the parallels here, because you have several characters that are literally just Isaac, which it could be argued that all of the characters are just Isaac wearing different wigs and stuff. I personally like to think of them as like different characters entirely, but there are characters that are specifically this is Isaac, and that of course is Isaac, Blue Baby, the Forgotten, and the Lost. Those are all just Isaac. Isaac is just Isaac when he's Isaac. Blue Baby is Isaac after he's basically just died and he's, you know, decaying after he's suffocated in Chest. The Forgotten is Isaac's skeleton, and the Lost is Isaac's ghost. So I think it's kind of cool that Isaac, the boss fight, is obviously just Isaac. Blue Baby is obviously just Isaac again, and then you look at the Lamb, and granted, the visuals are much different than, you know, Isaac and Blue Baby just being Isaac and Blue Baby, but I'd like to think that the Lamb is also just the Forgotten, and by extension, the Lost, because with the Forgotten, you kind of get 2 in 1. You kind of play as both the Forgotten and the Lost. But I'd never really put that parallel together, that, yeah, the Lamb is basically just the Forgotten. Granted, he attacks differently, but thematically, he's a skeleton that at one point splits off to being a skeleton and a ghost. Granted, the ghost is the flying skull, but it's still the same idea. The Forgotten, you play as a skeleton that is haunted by a ghost, and you can pop the ghost out and fly around as a ghost. And I think that's kind of cool. Not to mention that, of course, the way you unlock the Forgotten is by digging them up in Darkroom. So I think that's kind of cool. In general, the rating of the Fallen Angel, the song theme, remember how this was a music review? I like it. It's neat. The thematics are there. It's okay. The song itself is okay. I would listen to it. It's probably not going to be my first choice, but I do like it. So I'm going to say this is probably a B, maybe a B+. It's cool. Next up, we have Tribute, the credits theme. Funnily enough, this track is very God of War. It is very God of War. I'm not talking like, you know, like new God of War Ragnarok. I'm talking like God of War 2. This is very God of War. That's what it evokes for me, at least. I like it. I appreciate the more sinister, like imposing theming to it, given that you're not really going to hear this credits theme all too often, because it's very soon going to be replaced with like something from Afterbirth where it's much more melancholy. And I think that's thematically cool because a lot of the early game endings are very imposing and scary. Like, you know, when you first beat the game, you first beat Mom, and then it's the ending cutscene of Isaac going, yeah, and then his mom shows up behind him with a knife again. That's imposing. Or when you first unlock It Lives, you open the chest and you grab something, and then you turn around and you see this weird heart fetus creature and it screeches at you. That's imposing, and that's very fitting for the credits theme. So I think it's good. I'm gonna put that at B+. Very nice. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna say A-. Very good. Next up, we have Genesis 1337 Retro Beats, which I would imagine this is probably the arcade theme. Fine, it's groovy, it's okay. I know for a fact that anytime I enter an arcade in-game, I immediately start bobbing my head back and forth because the retro beats are very good. It's fun, I like it. I feel like the vocalizations are a little bit out of nowhere and don't really fit, but the vocalizations are nice enough that I can let it slide. It's fine. In general, I want to say this like a B-. It's good, it's fine. It doesn't particularly jump out at me, but it's good. Next up, we have Hush, and then in parentheses it says, Jesus loves uke, like ukulele? Okay, that's a different thing. But this is not the Hush theme, no, we're not into Afterbirth yet. This is just called Hush. I'm not even sure what this specifically is, so. Jesus loves you, can't you see? He loves you. Okay, so it's like the spooky alt version of the credits. Obviously, I don't need to tell you this. This song isn't supposed to sound good. It's supposed to be discordant. It's supposed to be, like, dirty and gross and bad. Because it's supposed to be spooky. Me rating on it whether or not it sounds good is not really the point. But at the same time, I'm probably going to skip past this credits. I like the original credits. I'd probably sit around and listen to them. But this version of the credits theme, I don't think I'm going to bother. Either way, it's spooky. It does what it needs to in that regard. It's obviously not going to sound good because that's not the point. So just to be fair, I'm going to sit it firmly at C. And it's just going to hang out at C.